train your Gavin. Read those books in a blink, oh yeah. Grab yourself a hot drink cause you're watching How to Train Your Gavin. Yep, that's me.
Hey guys, welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I am doing Library of My Life. I'll take her home to spend all night to keep her warm inside. I don't actually know the words to that one, but every time I say this title, I always think of Story of My Life by One Direction. I mean, impeccable. This is actually not my idea. This is a video that is inspired by Tiana at Tiana T. I absolutely love her video, Library of My Life. She did it about a week ago, and she picked books that kind of told a story in her life, like a Library of My Life in a Spotify playlist kind of format, and it was hilarious. It's a fantastic video. Please do check it out. I implore you, do check out Tiana's original video. It's linked in the description box. Okay, the books I've picked, I have like anecdotes for. I'm not saying necessarily that they've impacted my life at all. They just have like funny stories attached to them, or a story attached to them. I don't know if they're actually funny or not. However, I do want to share a little bit more about myself with these books. Tiana has this incredible like A3. Is A3 the big size? Yeah. A3, maybe A2, I don't know what size it is. But she had a really big ass one of these. And I just printed it on A4 paper because I do not have access to those skills, for one. But yeah, this is Library of My Life. It's empty at the minute, but I will fill it up with the books that I do have stories attached to them. So, I mean, I don't have anything fancy for this at all. I'm just gonna like, it won't stand up. Story of my life. This is an actual story of my life. Me doing things without any preparation whatsoever. Oh, okay. That'll do. So the first book is Charmed, The Power of Three. Obviously this is based on the original Charmed show that aired, gosh, so long ago now. So like I have it printed out. Right? This is what Tiana does, right? She has them printed out and then sticks them on her library. So let's stick Charmed, The Power of Three on here. You can go anywhere, just stick it on. To be fair, Charmed as a whole has impacted my life. I absolutely love Charmed. It's probably my favourite TV show of all time. So Waterstones used to do a 3 for 2 offer like years and years ago, and all of the Charmed books were in there, and I have all of them still. There's quite a lot of Charmed books. I think there's like over 30, and I still own them all, but I used to get them at every single opportunity I could. This one is kind of like a teleplay of the first ever episode of Charmed, the pilot episode of Charmed. This isn't actually the original copy of this book. I did own this and then I loaned it to a friend and then she ended up dropping it in the bath. So I ended up having to repurchase this book. So this isn't the original copy and I'm devastated. But I actually haven't read the Charmed books in so long. I don't know if they're actually still any good or not. Charmed is a TV show that follows the lives of 3 sisters, Prue, Piper and Phoebe Halliwell. Their grams dies and then they come into their powers and they end up having to fight demons and warlocks and witches and different kinds of monsters throughout 8 seasons of the show, and then Paige comes into it in season 4. To show the extent of how much I love Charmed, I'm not an artist whatsoever. I started drawing my own Book of Shadows. It's not very good at all. I don't even think you can see it properly. I used to try and replicate the Book of Shadows all the time. This is the extent of my artistic talents, and I think it's absolutely stunning. 10 out of 10. I mean, there were some good pages I did. Like, this one doesn't look too bad. Like, I ended up getting a life-size Book of Shadows replica, but it was blank, so I ended up kind of like printing off the pages myself, which honestly I didn't end up completing. And it's kind of broke now as well. It's old, this. But like, this is like the 15th version of this. I did used to hand dye the pages with coffee and try and make the pages look older, like age the pages myself. I would get so far into it and then I would just start again from scratch. What a waste of paper, if you ask me. Like, honestly, the amount of times I would try and recite the spells from this just to like try and prove that I was a witch, like to call a lover to oneself, the amount of times I tried that spell, never worked, did it? No, I would absolutely love it. Oh my god, I didn't realise these were in here. I did used to collect the Book of Shadows replica pages from the magazine, and I didn't realise that they were in here as well. That's a nice surprise. I was obsessed, okay? I was obsessed. Okay, so moving on from that, the next book is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Now, let's put lists on here. This is actually quite fun. I love sticking things on here. So let's put this up here as well. Beautiful. Now, this is not one of my favourite books ever at all or anything like that. However, this was the first book I think I picked up because of BookTube. I remember watching Jessie the Reader years and years and years ago talking about Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and I ended up picking this up. It must have been, gosh, back in 2013 maybe? I'm not too sure, I might be lying about that. I think it might have been around about 2013, 2014. And that was sort of my introduction to BookTube, so I have Jessie the Reader to thank for that. I remember reading this and really enjoying it, and then I picked up Hollow City. Well, actually, I had them all on the Kindle, and I read Hollow City, and I enjoyed that one as well. I haven't gotten back into the series since then, though, and it's been, gosh, that'll be about 6 years ago now, so I really need to kind of reread the first couple and get back into it, I think, and then see if the series is any good from them, because sometimes rereading things not the same. But I did love this when I first read it, and yeah, as I said, it got me into BookTube, got me into watching more BookTubers. So yeah, this was my first ever BookTube recommendation purchase. So, I mean, not this actual book I did get on the Kindle, but it was like the actual first recommendation. This was gifted to me by Christina. So thanks, Christina. But yeah, it was a really good recommendation. Okay, next, I have mentioned this story before on my channel, but they are Hair of Fire and The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. So let's stick these on here, somewhere at the top. There's Assassin's Blade and Hair of Fire. There we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, I have talked about why these would be on here before. I did a reading vlog for House of Earth and Blood, the first book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas, and I did that back in January now, I think it was. And the reason why these will be on here is because I actually got these signed personally by Sarah J Maas. I went to a book signing. This was way, way, way before she became the Sarah J Maas we know and love today. I went to the Waterstones in Newcastle, and I had no idea who the hell she was. Not gonna lie, I had no clue. I'd never read any of the Throne of Glass books in my life, and I remember it popping up on Twitter way back when. I mentioned Sarah J Maas in my Twitter mentions, and then she actually replied and things. This was when she would use Twitter as well, so this is going way back. And then I ended up going into the Waterstones to meet her, and when I got up to talk to her, I told her how much I loved her, how much I loved her books, and how influential her stories are to me. And honestly, I was lying through my fucking teeth. I'm a compulsive liar when I meet authors. You know, I just want them to like have a smile on their face and like feel good and things. So when I say like, oh my god, your books are the best books I've ever read and things like that, when I say it to an author, like half the time I don't really mean it. I just want them to smile. And I still haven't actually read the Throne of Glass series to this day, and this would have been about 6 years ago as well. So sorry, Sarah J Maas, I will get round to reading them. I've been saying this for gosh donkey's years, but yeah, I will get around to reading these at some point, just not right now. I have read some other books by Sarah J Maas. As I said, I read Crescent City. I've read the first 2 books in the ACOTAR series, and I really enjoyed them. So I do really want to read them, but I've probably gone a bit backwards in how I've read them because obviously Throne of Glass was Sarah J Maas's first novel. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. These are quite, not impactful, but like there's just a story there. Okay, next it is The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. Pop that on there. Now, The Mysteries of Udolpho is a classic gothic novel, and Anne Radcliffe is a fantastic gothic writer, by the way. She literally pioneered the gothic genre. I learned so much about her at university. And because of like how much I admired her and how much I, you know, loved the sound of her books and things, I chose this as one of the books to write on for my dissertation, my undergraduate dissertation. She also wrote The Italian, which is one of my favourite gothic books of all time. Now, the story behind this one is that even though I wrote my dissertation on it, I never actually finished the book. Yeah, I wrote my entire dissertation on this one and The Italian by Anne Radcliffe, which I actually read all the way through, and I love The Italian. I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favourite gothic books of all time. But this one, I didn't actually manage to finish it. I essentially DNF'd my dissertation book. But I did still get a first on the dissertation, so it's fine, it's fine. This proves that you can do it, but also do not follow my lead, kids. Do not follow my lead. Read your books, especially if you're going to do a dissertation on them. But yeah, I was poring over this undergraduate dissertation. It was one of the most stressful things ever, and partly why it was so stressful is because I never finished the book. I think I only had around about 100, 150 pages left, but at the time I was just like, nah, I've got to get it right and haven't I? So I ended up not finishing my own dissertation book. I did mention that in my top classic books video I did a few months back. But yes, this is the infamous dissertation here. Anne Radcliffe's feminist heroines, cultivating sensibility and overcoming patriarchal oppression in the Mysteries of Udolpho and the Italian. Now, I feel like I got away with it because I love the Italian so much, and I said what I needed to say. That's all I needed to do. Okay, next is probably the most dramatic story of this video, and this is in relation to Seventh Bone by Monica Sands. Let's stick this one just there. Okay, now I love this book. Monica Sands is a friend of mine. She is a very famous writer on Wattpad. That's how I met her, through Wattpad. And this came out towards the end of 2018. Now, at the time this came out, I was in Ottawa in Canada, and I was doing this job. I used to be an international travelling ambassador for Reach Out Volunteers. They do volunteer programs in places like Cambodia and South Africa. So I'd been to those places to help volunteer, build houses, things like that. And then I ended up being an ambassador for them in the summer of 2018. That was essentially going across North America and Canada to speak to loads of different students in different universities about volunteering. And I was in Ottawa when this book came out, and I went into, I think it's called Chapters. I think that's the bookshops in Canada. And as I was in Chapters, there was a tornado warning. And now, me being from the UK, I've never experienced a tornado warning before, but there was this alert that came through on my phone, and honestly, I was shitting myself because, yeah, as I said, I've never had to go through something like that before. And I noticed as well, lots of people at the same time, their phones would go off and they would look at their phones. And I was with another travelling ambassador at the time as well. And I was with her. And I'm not going to lie, about an hour beforehand, we were... Okay, this is terrible, but we were smoking pot, and I'd never ever smoked pot before in my life. I don't know why I'm admitting this on a video. We had smoked some pot. So at first I was kind of like, I'm hallucinating here. This is what's going on. I was honestly terrified, and my friend was obviously... I mean, she was way more high than I was, and we didn't really know exactly what to do. The sky was getting darker. We had to get to an Airbnb miles and miles away from, like, Ottawa, where we were at the time. But it started to rain really heavily, and then the sky was really dark, and my ambassador's friend ended up picking us up and taking us to this Airbnb. We went with a few friends. We must have drove away from the storm or the tornado. I think it did hit. I remember reading that I think one person died, and yeah, so that was really dramatic. But that happened as I picked up my friend's book from Chapters. So I still really recommend reading this, even though tornado hit when I picked this one up from there. But yeah, that's why I wanted to mention this one in this video. Next, I have My Adventures with Alice in Wonderland. And when I say my adventures, I really do mean my adventures. So pop this one just right there, I think. Yep. So My Adventures with Alice in Wonderland. Well, this is one of those books where parents would see an advert on the TV and you could get your, children's names put into the book, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, your kid is famous. This is from My Adventure Books. It says copyright 1995, so I was 3 at the time when this was made. I mean, it's not a thrilling read, but it does have me as a main character. Not just me, but my siblings as well. And I think my parents made a big mistake when they were doing this, because every single time I introduce myself, so we have here, I'm Gavin Hetherington, and this is Gavin, Martin, and Kaylee. So Martin and Kaylee are my brother and sister. But every single time I, introduce myself, I always say, and this is Gavin, Martin, and Kaylee. So it's like there were 2 Mays there. I can't show this because it had my address at the time. But I'm Gavin Hetherington, and I live at blah, blah, blah. Said Gavin. This is Gavin, Martin, Kaylee, and Alice. Like, every single time. Every time. So they must have cocked it up somewhere as they were filling out the form. This would have been done over the telephone. I think this was before we had internet, or before the internet even existed. I don't know. It might have been dial-up, but we didn't get the internet, I think, until like 2001, 2002. God, this takes me back so much. But yeah, it's a thrilling adventure where it just plops you straight into the story. Do let me know if your parents, or if you ever gave your children one of these, saw an advert on TV maybe and thought, ooh, I can put my kids in a book. Let me know, because I still have mine. I'm surprised I still do. And I always say my full name as well. So, who is this? Said the Queen of Hearts, looking straight at Gavin. What's your name, child? My name is Gavin Hetherington, Your Majesty, said Gavin very politely. Okay, I wasn't very polite when I said that. I am not a good protagonist. There's also this part as well. Bumblebee flew down to the ground and Gavin, Martin, Keely and Alice. Yeah, they cocked this up so badly. That's that one. Next we have Goosebumps, The Ghost Next Door by R.L. Stine. And this one will go very nicely here. And with The Ghost Next Door, the story, the book itself, it's fair enough, fine. But you can see how really yellow this is. But I did write in it, I wrote, got it from Butlins in the 1997. Not just 1997, the 1997. And I would have been 5 at the time. And I used to stick these white labels on all of my books and write Gavin Hetherington on. And obviously I regret it now. I don't know why I did that. Like, I defaced every single book. I wrote in every single book. I am honestly a book lover's nightmare. I'm my nightmare. But the reason why I remember this book so much, or at least the memory connected to it, is that obviously when I was at Butlins, it is this like holiday park in the UK. So if you're from the UK, and you're like a bit of an older person, you might have gone to Butlins as a holiday at some point in your life. And just the word Butlins kind of sent a shiver down my spine. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I remember as well that I was not supposed to get this book. It was supposed to be my sister who got this book, and which is why also at the front it has like my sister's name there, but I've crossed it out and put Gavin. I also used to love wearing wigs. I mean, I haven't grown out of that, but I used to love wearing wigs, and my sister got a wig as well, and I was in such a huff that I wasn't speaking to anyone. I was really moody until I got to try on the wig, and it was like I was transformed. But it was either the wig or the book, and honestly I would have chosen the wig. I would have chosen the wig. But I ended up getting the Goosebumps book instead. Yeah, this is one of my earliest books I've ever owned, I think, apart from the Alice in Wonderland one. But still, the wig was not mine for long. And it wasn't even a good wig. Okay, the next book is really reflective. I don't know if you'll be able to say it very well, but that is the Imagines book, which is Celebrity Encounters Starring You by various Wattpad authors, including Anna Todd, who wrote After. So stick Imagines on here. Now, I haven't actually read this one yet, but there is a memory attached to this one. Long backstory, I used to be, well, I mean, I kind of still am, on and off, a Wattpad writer, and I was invited to speak at a WattCon, the first ever, I think, WattCon, in 2016, October 2016 in New York City. So I was on a panel, and this is where I ended up picking this book, because it's filled with loads of different authors. It was properly published, and all of that. I was like so excited, because a few of these authors were going to be there. So I did actually end up getting a lot of them to sign it. And I think a couple more signed on their story page. So this is essentially Celebrity Encounters, where this is told in second person. So essentially the first story is about Kim Kardashian taking a selfie, and I think selfies are outlawed, and it's up to you and Kim to overcome the patriarchy. So, I mean, it sounds great. I do think I want to read this at some point one day, but the memory attached to it is the fact that I did manage to pick it up when I went to New York. It was the first time I ever went to New York. I went by myself, and I was really scared, really nervous, but I met some fantastic people there. I do have a lot of friends who are Wattpad writers, so it was still a great experience. I love Wattpad with my whole entire heart. I loved picking this up and meeting all the authors and stuff. They are so nice and so sweet and so brilliant. But Anna Todd wasn't there, of course, so I didn't get to meet Anna Todd. A lot of friends are in here, so I do think there's going to be some fantastic ones. So yeah, I picked this up in New York City, my first time ever in New York, and yeah, so that's why it's on here as well. Okay, speaking of being a Wattpad writer then, the next, well, 2 books that I put on here are Remnants of the Damned and Ashes of the Innocent. I wrote these. Come on, let's put these on Library of My Life before I do anything else. So there's Remnants of the Damned. And then we have Ashes of the Innocent. Now, this is where you will learn so much more about me. These are self-published, though. I wrote them on Wattpad, and I actually self-published this, 7 years ago now, October 2013. I self-published this. Remnants of the Damned, first book in the Abyssal Sanctuary series, and honestly I am really proud. I am really proud of this, the second book, which is like 500 pages long, by the way, and I did get halfway through writing the 4th book when I had a big mental health breakdown at the end of 2017, start of 2018. I ended up taking pretty much all of my stories down off Wattpad. Some of them are back now, but I haven't put this series back on. I feel like this could do with like so many major edits. This one, book 3 and book 4, what I wrote for it. To be fair, a lot of people have been asking me to put them back on Wattpad, but I feel like if I did put them back on, I would have to continue writing the series. I don't think I'm ready to dive back into the series. I love the series so much. I've actually been writing and thinking about the series for the past 12 years. It was, you know, when I just finished secondary school when I started writing and thinking about this series. So 12 years ago now, and I do feel really bad because it was honestly the love of my life for such a long time, and it was all of my life for such a long time. But I kind of cringe now. I do, just like thinking about it. I don't know. But I self-published this October 2013. It did really well, actually. I think it sold like 5,000 in its first month. Free, of course. It was not paid, God no. But it was on the free Kindle store, and it got like 5,000 in its first month, which is great, I guess. But it took off on Wattpad. Yeah, I mean, I loved it, and I still love it. Oh, do you want to know what it's about? So I'll read the back, because honestly, I kind of forgot. Okay, this is kind of like an urban fantasy horror YA series, and it follows 5 young adults. Well, I say young adults, so like, I think they're early 20s, I think. Gosh, I've forgotten. Oh my god. So, within the town of Lakefield View, 5 young employees of a picturesque cafe become embroiled in a startling mystery that has deep roots to their forgotten childhood. Justin, Tiffany, Christina, Eric, and Carmen have no choice but to play along in the never-ending horror movie that has now become their lives. The cataclysmic event of a family member getting killed right in front of their eyes sends each character down a gradual path to shocking truths. As the bodies in Lakefield View pile up and the secrets get darker, the 5 friends fight to survive, finding it harder and harder to keep their heads above increasingly murkier water. At first glance, the town looks just like any other, but as the friends begin to realise, the town itself and the people inside are not quite right. After all, the only thing worse than being alone in the dark is finding out you're not. 2013, man. I feel like I should probably read some of this out, but I'll save that for another video if you're interested. But I did write this like from like 5 kind of different points of views, but each of the point of views like intersect. It starts at the same point and ends at the same point, but there's like 5 character sections, and you see glimpses into each one, and it just becomes this like jigsaw puzzle of a narrative that you kind of piece together, and you see it from like different sides. And then we get to the like 3-chapter finale where it's all come together. And yeah, so this one has like cannibalistic family members, and there's witches, and there's stalkers, and there's clowns, and there's this. I put everything I possibly could in this, and it's a bit embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, this is like 120,000 words. I really went hard on this series, I'm telling you. I went hard, thinking this was going to be the big shit. Maybe one day I'll go back to it, maybe. Okay, so the last book I want to talk about is The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. I'm going to pop this one on here. So that is my library of my life. Sort of complete. I'm sure there's going to be way more, but these are all the ones that I could think of at the minute that have a story attached. So yeah, The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. This is what really kickstarted my love for middle grade. I mentioned this before. This was back in 2018 when this was released, and I ended up picking it up because I have heard the legend of Baba Yaga, and this is what this book incorporates, Russian folktales, and I was just really intrigued by it. So I picked it up, and this was like the first children's book I'd read in like a decade, and I absolutely loved it so much, and it literally is what kickstarted me and my love for middle grade. And this was only 2 years ago. If you think about like all of the middle grades I've read now and how much I own for middle grades, it's like a huge difference to what it was 2 years ago, and I crammed so much in that short amount of time. But I will always credit this one as being the one that kickstarted it all off. I remember as well when I went for my interview as a children's bookseller, I was asked, you know, what my favourite middle grade book was, and I said The House with Chicken Eggs by Sophie Anderson, because that was like the only one I'd read in like a decade. So I was like, and then they were really impressed because this was a Waterstones book of the month. So like, oh my god, you're like knowledgeable in your books of the month. I was like, yeah, I am. I'm such a huge fan. And it probably helped me get the job. I don't know. It's on my library of my life. That is probably the only book that on this list that has impacted me a lot. The rest of them were just like anecdotes, really. The rest of them were just anecdotes. So yeah, this is the library of my life. Very different, not what I was expecting at all. I enjoyed doing that though. I liked going down memory lane and revealing little bits and bobs about myself during that. But I'm sure there's like way more that I could have talked about, but these, I just narrowed it down to these ones, just for like different reasons, different stories. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to check out Tiana Tay's original video down in the description box and subscribe to Tiana as well. And yeah, please leave a comment. Let me know if you've read any of these and if you have any books that impacted you. And hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye!